I making this video once again. No clever intro. Sometimes you falter and you struggle and you look for the candle in the darkness. Um, and we seem to come to this point a lot the past 8 years. The thing that really just deeply wounds me is that I don't want to blame the Catholic community that we're. I mean, there's nobody that's really regularly. Um, we don't really have a parish. We were trying to start having a parish, but people kept messing with our money, so now they make it more difficult. And messing with our car makes it pretty difficult too. Um, so we do go to a few places, but we don't know anybody there. But apparently, somebody's trying to find ways to weaponize. We have people going to where we go to confession or we go to mass that are not really Catholic, but nobody there knows. Um, we have people trying to just mess up our faith, you know, mess up the community part of faith. And so, I mean, it affects your faith, and step back. And your argument against the church corporate is that if such, evil is allowed to, either through the naivety of the church or through, people in church can be malicious too. That really diminishes the Holy Spirit's work within the church. And somebody from a Quaker background, such as myself, would hold that against the church, saying that you can't redefine succession, apostolic succession, based on how somebody reinterprets dogma or how somebody reacts to a movement or a political campaign, um, or a showdown between parties. You can't redefine it by somebody's enemies weaponizing church against them. You can't redefine what church is by based on who follows a particular ideology or framework or ideological framework of interpretation of dogma. Um, so I hold that against them. This is what diminishes succession within the church. If the church is full of heresy, then I'm not saying the church is. I'm just saying that from my Quaker Mennonite background, this is what I hold against the church. Church is, when there's no truth and when, um, church is weaponized to become a tool of political machine, then that diminishes and hampers apostolic succession. And it's the same thing Luther said, actually. But I'm not turning against the church. I'm just stepping back. And anyway, it's the same thing Luther said. And it's certainly, they're never meant to leave the church. Most people don't know that. He was considering, there's letters out there. And I mean, it's not, he didn't say it directly, but there's letters out there that lead one to think that, number one, he didn't plan to leave the Catholic Church. When he was pushed, after censure, he was pushed to involuntary censure, as opposed to a voluntary one, to, recantation, to recant what you say. Then you go to involuntary censure, which means basically a bishop or higher will tell you to be quiet, stop talking, stop publicly, saying things, and they may even remove your public ministry. And then the third step is permanent removal of public ministry, censure, public censure, and then the last step is disrobing, and then the next step, actually, it's not the last step. The second to last step is disrobing. Um, there's a lot of reasons to disrobe. I was disrobed because I remarried. Some people are disrobed because crime. Some people are disrobed because they publicly, like I said, refuse to uh, recant statements they've made, so they are disrobed by their bishop or removed to another diocese. And definitely, if you're moved to another diocese and you again do the same thing to another bishop, you will be disrobed. And the last step after disrobing is excommunication. So they jumped around the steps to Luther because he said things they didn't like. They jumped a lot of steps, and there's certain uh, ambiguity when you're in a religious order, which he was. I believe he was an Augustinian, and there's a little bit of ambiguity there. But generally, you don't jump the steps, but sometimes they do, because within a religious order, you can have an abbot who acts as a bishop, but is not a bishop, and you can have uh, leadership within a convent or monastery or abbot or um, friary that are not technically abbots. It's given um, because there's nobody to be an abbot. It's kind of like a apostolic administrator, only for an abbey or a convent or a monastery or a friary. Um, so there's a little bit of ambiguity there. So, but still, they jumped a lot of steps with former father Martin Luther, and he was talking to the ecumenical patriarchate. There's a couple of letters that are kept. Actually, I believe they're kept by the EP, and looks like perhaps Luther was going to try to change jurisdictions. Looks like possibly, because he didn't expect to leave the Catholic Church. It wasn't by choice, but nonetheless, we've had at least two of the past popes that have said that his criticisms in the 95 Theses, many of those criticisms are valid. If there is a period of time when there's a great amount of heresy or corruption or failure to pursue truth within the church, it does affect its apostolic succession. If it's at the highest levels, that hasn't happened, but certainly a period of about 1100 through what 1600. There's certainly a lot of time where we got very, very close. And so that being said, I can see his arguments, and you know, to a certain degree, but we don't really have a church community, a church family per se. We just have a few places that we go. Um, but when I see people pull the wool's eyes over priests, and when I see people, using our church, and people pretending to be Catholic, when people go into churches and make trouble, um, it's certainly very concerning. When people weaponize the sacrament of confession, also, very concerning. Priests may not see these things, but somebody trained in investigation, somebody trained in force protection, um, somebody trained, in the academic areas of intelligence, we can see frauds. Just talking to them 2 or 3 minutes, we can spot a fraud. And sometimes we know a fraud, because they're like, why are you here for confession? You're not even Catholic. So, but I mean, it is what it is. Generally you find a lot of people in the clergy and religious, they're pragmatic. They're trying to, foster people's choices and returning to the faith, people in, conversion, people in life change. So, I mean, I can't really fault them. But anyway, that's not what this video is about. It just shows things affect your faith, your prayer life. And you see so much evil. I mean, not even just within your church, but when you see people who are supposed to share, the the reverence for Christ, the love for Him and His ministry, and you see people doing evil. It returns us back to the point where we were 6 years ago. Not to leave or anything, but just that you just reach an impasse where you're like, I can't move past this. It's difficult. But then when you have neighbors who regularly threaten you or make comments like, "Oh yeah, we know what's going on. Sooner or later you'll just be another fallen away Catholic." Um, it's people shouldn't have the right to cross boundaries like that. But that being said, this video is about contact centers, and hopefully, I'll help somebody with this video. Uh, Presently, our contact centers are, the ones that, or maybe it's one. I still don't know. A lot of times I call, I seem to get the same place, but or it's international counterparts. But contact center. Actually, I worked at a contact center. USA is a great company. I love that company. I mean, really, really dearly. I love USA. I love Allstate. I love Geico. Those are three insurers I've had in my life, and they're great. They really are. And but at least USA, my my region, is using the same call center or the same call center pool, and these contact center, they process documents that you upload, and these people, they can go in and they process these, and also you can call them on the phone, and somebody keeps messing with my claim, not my claim, correction, my claim. Yes, somebody is messing with my claim, because just like at Country Way, where we live now, somebody is messing with my email. They keep logging in, deleting stuff, preventing stuff from leaving the outbox, and my claim for my car. I've sent out 6 emails, and they've said we've received nothing. So they're messing with my email again. But another way that they're messing, with us financially is every time I submit all of my health records, my proof of insurance and all of that stuff, and I submit my waivers for certain coverages because we have other coverage, or I submit my, request for deductibles, you know, larger deductibles to reduce the overall coverage expense. Somebody, I upload them, somebody keeps deleting them every single time. I think we're going on 6 or 7 times now. And my PIP keeps on getting doubled back up to 700 um, per policy 6 month period. It keeps getting doubled back up, actually tripled. Where it's supposed to be when I submit my waivers, my outside coverage, my deductibles, deductible maximization, it's supposed to be a third. And they keep upping that every single time I submit my paperwork, my evidence, and somebody goes in and deletes it, and then we start over again. The policy will recycle, go back up. Then I'll do it again. Then it goes back down. They keep toying with us. And somebody's toying with my phone so that I can't use my um, Safe Driver app. I have an app that logs. It's called USA Drive Safe, and you can get from 10 to 30% reduction. Uh, Actually, it's a credit of your insurance for your driving habits. And somebody keeps toying with my phone and blocking it so that I can't upload data for my trips. And then other times they'll hack the app itself on the phone so it won't even register trips. And they're doing this so I can't get my 325 miles within a 6 month policy period. You have to get 1,250 per year, or each policy period of 6 months, 325 miles, or 16 hours, and or one or both, the greater of whichever one. And actually, I'm not sure if it's the greater of, but anyway, that's what they're looking for. It's 325 miles and or 16 hours of driving. So you could basically drive to Florida, and then you're covered. You know, your monitoring period is done, and then the underwriters will assess your the capability to underwrite you for this, and you could get up to 30% discount. I mean, USA is a great company, and as long as you're a safe driver, but it logs everything: hard braking, if the phone is touched as opposed to being put DND, do not disturb. They will notate if you're using the phone hands free or not. Um, let's see what else. Oh, your speed. Yeah, stuff like that. Distracted driving, texting, anything. It's all logged there. Then the underwriters will look at it to see what kind of a liability you are. Um, so if somebody's messing with it, that way I lose that 10% discount. So potentially with all of this stuff, plus my coverage, my coverage requests for maximizing deductibles, for getting waivers for outside insurance, um, waiver of income loss for loss of employment, stuff like that. Every possible thing. I used to do insurance, so I know a little bit about this stuff. And I could potentially be looking at 40 to 50% discount just with all my discount plans. 40 to 50%. And or no, correction. I'm sorry, 30 to 40% reduction. And then you add all of my waivers, maximizing deductible, coverage waivers, et cetera, et cetera. I could be looking at only paying 20 or 30% of my insurance costs per 6 months. And so you would double it again on the second 6 month period. But through contact centers and through hacking, they're ruining that. I'm so sick of it. The fact that nobody does a damn thing. And people say, oh, neighbors have said, oh, your video pushes people on. You say people could do whatever they want. They're just twisting my words. That's why I don't like the place we live. The front office, I never really had a good relationship with them since we moved here. They have went through a few people. Um, I'm not saying that they haven't tried at different periods, uh, but it seems the people that move in here, I can't totally put the blame on them. I see patterns, definitely. Friends of friends and such, people that target us, there are patterns. But I mean, I can't put all the blame on them because people can go in there and lie and say, oh, yeah, we want to be in the back. Yeah, we heard the back is great. You know, so I mean, I can't put the entire blame on them, but I certainly see patterns. and they know that because I've confronted them. And but I can't shoulder the blame on them entirely because people can lie in there. And like I've been told by at least one person in the housing agency, sometimes the vetting is not as important as the filling of apartments. And that being said, that certainly some of our headaches and our stress is some of the people around us. So just I wish that we would have never been pushed here. Um, but I mean, people, I support people running a business. It's you can't always control your clientele. But anyway, so yeah, this is tired of people messing with our money. I always try to do things to reduce our living expenses. Live frugally, and 8 years the way we've lived, doing this for 8 years while everybody else destroys our stuff. Ruin another car, steal our stuff, or find ways to make us spend more money. Maybe a ruined refrigerator or a microwave that always burns food or a air fryer that the temperature setting appears to be wrong. Always something. And when you return stuff, you get stuff back that's tempered with, or when you get different appliances given to you or whatever, or sold to you, stuff is messed with. This is a horrible place to live. I regret ever moving here. And then when you make plans to move, people around you threaten you. If you leave Saginaw County, your rating is going to go in the trash. Stuff like that. You move out of this. You move out of your complex. Matter of fact, if you even do that, your rating's going in the trash. But there's a point you get so sick of it, so sick of it. And when people make children suffer because of this, people interfere with your children, especially children that are teenagers just reaching maturity. That makes me mad as hell. That somebody puts my child in danger, what, to position them to traffic them or manipulate them because they're in Southeast Asia, and that's what many foreigners do, or they set them up with people, push them to people from their group. That makes me mad as hell. And I will say this: if somebody tries to harm my daughters, they've already tried to turn them against me. If somebody harms my daughters or traffics them or sets them up with somebody who I find out is some kind of a monster, I don't need the law to handle him. I'll handle him the way it's supposed to be handled. And the fact that the place we're in now, once again, people are entering our home, using my daughter's towels, taking our sheets, taking her panties, my underwear. It's disgusting. Taking our clothes, using our linens. That's disgusting as hell. These are predators. And why do people in Saginaw keep ignoring taking care of a predator? There's a place they belong, sometimes for life.